All right, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to formally announce that today's lecture is about to begin. First, on behalf of the Buddhist Studies Institute of Northwest University, I would like to welcome Khenpo Sodargye to our university to give us a lecture. As for Khenpo Sodargye, I think that, in my opinion, this name is truly well known to anyone who has had even a little contact with Buddhism. So I won't take up too much time today with the introduction. If you are still not familiar, just go online and all the information will instantly appear right in front of your eyes. So here, the most important characteristic I want to mention is that Khenpo Sodargye is not only a monastic, he is also an exceptionally great scholar, with published literary works totaling over 10 million words, all authored by his own hand. He has an extremely wide and significant influence, both in China and abroad. At the same time, he is also a dedicated and active promoter of social charity work, and he has devoted himself tirelessly to many charitable and public welfare activities. Northwest University, we have an Institute of Buddhist Studies as well as a Center for Religious Studies. Many of the teachers and students who are present here at this very moment are actively engaged in various religious studies. Among these, research on care for life, especially from religious viewpoints, is also one of our most important main focus areas. Religion is concerned with the ultimate questions of human existence, and these fundamental questions are closely related to life itself in many significant and important ways. So, what is life? Does life in any meaningful sense have a future? Does it actually continue on into the future? If there is continuation, in what specific form does this continuation actually take place? Could you perhaps explain a bit more? On this issue, there are a multitude of opinions within the academic community. Many scholars in various research fields also have profound doubts. Similarly, both the theory and practice on this question have been passed down in the Buddhist community for 2,500 years. The lineage of Tibetan Buddhism, in turn, originates from ancient tradition of Indian Mahayana Buddhism. When it comes to the most glorious period of Mahayana Buddhism, the representative of Indian Buddhism is Nalanda Monastery. This is clearly described in Tang Xuanzang's record of the Western regions, and everyone can simply see a detailed account right there. Indeed, the truly great teachings of the renowned Nalanda Monastery have been preserved in a very complete, remarkably detailed form within Tibetan Buddhism. Today, the highly respected Khenpo Sodargye, as a lineage holder of Tibetan Buddhism, would like to share the Buddhist wisdom that he has mastered with all those who appreciate the beauty of life and who are fascinated by the endless cycle of beginnings and endings, the constant coming and going that defines our existence. On his journey from Peking University, Tsinghua, Xiamen to Sun Yat-sen University, today, right now, he has come to the classroom of Northwest University, here with all of us. Khenpo Sodargye is both someone who has dedicated many years to scholarly study and a venerable master in Buddhism. So our lecture today will not just be a simple, straightforward, purely rational academic lecture. It will also be an enlightening talk, communication, and a thought-provoking teaching on the questions, deeply exploring the nature of life itself. Before we invite Khenpo Sodargye to give his speech, let us just take a brief moment of attention. I kindly ask everyone right now to pause for a moment, take a slow and deep breath in through your nose, and then gently exhale with a relaxed body and mind. And then to listen to Khenpo Sodargye's insightful and engaging talk and discussion on the sustainability of life and the complex reality of life. All right, thank you all.
Today, the profound subject we will be discussing here together concerns the very nature of future lives and rebirth from Buddhism perspective. Originally, when I first started thinking about this, I actually wanted to discuss something else entirely, but later the university suggested that it would be truly best to focus on the topic of future lives and rebirth, because I have given teachings on the principles of future lives at other schools and have basically explained some of these ideas before, as I have discussed in previous sections. While then I thought, if we reflect on the same topic again, it is not a bad idea to sometimes think about some fundamental truths. In fact, because everyone present the lecture, as you can see right now, whether the teachers, professors, students, or intellectuals from various departments, many of you have a doubt in the heart. Do humans truly have future lives after this one in reality? This is also a particularly significant question. If there's truly no future life, we could really do whatever we want and act without any limitations or restraint or even the slightest consideration in any possible way. But if future lives exist, then we really need to be absolutely and truly cautious and care deeply about our next lives. We often hear about caring for the next generation. Indeed, it is truly good to care for others. While have we ever cared about ourselves? If one has never cared about own future lives, as the Buddha said in the sutras, not believing of future lives will commit every evil without restraint. This is frightening, and it is extremely crucial as well. However, I think that many intellectuals, indeed theoretically speaking, some people articulate sweeping theories and talk eloquently and convincingly, but when it comes to actually examining themselves internally, they are often merely caught up in mere labels and terminologies and have never really thought about some important issues concerning themselves. This is a very common problem. So today, the main topic that we are discussing together, it should be said that regarding the existence or non-existence of afterlife and future life, I mean rebirth, if they truly do not exist, then it really doesn't matter at all. In the end, if we simply don't care about them. But if it really and truly does exist, then what exactly should we do about it in this particular case? Everyone should give this some thought. For everyone here, the future of life unfolds in vast cycles. It is truly and extremely long for all of us. It's not something that truly comes to an end in 100, 200, or even 300 years, nor even after thousands or tens of thousands of years. If we make no preparations whatsoever for such a long stretch of time in advance, then although humanity may appear on the surface to be very advanced, intelligent, and wise, in reality we have already overlooked and neglected so many of the most truly meaningful, significant, and important matters in our daily lives. Therefore, I believe we can say this matter is what we should all genuinely care. The existence of past and future lives concerns everyone very much. If you feel interested in future lives that mentioned earlier today, I think that perhaps I can have the opportunity to share with you about some of the key concepts, perspectives, and fundamental reasoning found in Buddhism. Today, we have a very open and free platform here at this moment, and it is also a form of exchange. This is also in line with the British style. I am seated at the lowest position, and you are all seated at the highest. Each of you can observe me throughout today's event and raise questions at any time, and I especially like this approach because if I was sitting above, regardless of what I say is right or wrong, and after I give an order, you all had to obey, which really wouldn't be very good. According to some old British traditions, it has always been exactly like this in the past. Anyone can supervise, and everyone can see if I do something wrong. Whatever it is that I do, you are all, each and every one of you, witnesses to everything that happens. Not only can you see my actions, but if there are problems with my words, later, you can identify them and point them out directly to the audiencery. Now, we have already been in the 21st century, whether it's Tibetan Buddhism or Han Chinese Buddhism, or even those of you in academia, everyone should absolutely adopt a very fair and objective mindset when analyzing issues. Additionally, the issue we're analyzing is especially subtle and detailed, which concerns the question of past and future lives. Regarding past and future lives, this is how I see it. There are a lot of literatures and resources on this in the Chinese as well, particularly in such as English and Tibetan. There are quite a lot of ongoing discussions and debates among people from various backgrounds about the existence of past and future lives. As this topic continues to spark curiosity and differing opinions, for those who study Tibetan, like us in Tibet, including people in Tibetan Buddhism, the existence of past and future lives is something that remains in everyone's mind actually a very normal phenomenon and widely considered doctrinally affirmed. Generally speaking, in the eyes of us Tibetans, if I may be completely honest, if someone denies there's past and future lives, or if they don't believe the existence of past and future lives, people think it is strange and believe something is wrong with this person's thinking. Everyone would talk about it. That's the kind of situation it is. But in Han Chinese regions, in particular, in modern and today's society, if some people acknowledge the existence of past and future lives, it might be the other way around. And people would likely think there might be something wrong with their thinking. This kind of phenomenon also exists in most cities nowadays. At this point, I deliberately maintain a allegiant attitude neither to Buddhist perspectives nor to non-Buddhist viewpoints. I am standing from an objective and impartial standpoint. From this standpoint, each of you should ask yourselves honestly. This specific talk is highly valued by all participants, given that time proves undeniably precious for every individual. Just as some ancient literati asserted have said, time constitutes life itself. Setting aside an hour is precious for each person. So when we make full use of this 1 hour, at this particular moment, in this very instant, under this circumstance, is there any room, any space in your heart for doubt about the existence of past and future lives and rebirths? Or do you have a definitive conviction about past and future lives, whether they definitely exist or definitely do not exist? Which one do you accept? If I were to ask for a show of hands, there would be some, perhaps a very small number, who believe that past and future lives definitely exist. That might be the situation. In fact, some people genuinely believe that they might actually exist out there, and some people think they absolutely do not exist. I think there are probably just these three types. Among these three types of individuals, ask yourself which one you belong to. Generally speaking, for us monastics, those who have sincerely and diligently studied and explored Buddhism for many years, we all certainly think that it exists because we have very solid reasons to support the belief that the absolute reality of past and future lives. Some people may have only perhaps managed to understand just part of the content, and whether it's Buddhism or even Christianity nowadays, both recognize and acknowledge the existence of an afterlife in one form or another. Just in some of their scriptures, they have not particularly studied it in depth, and they only partially acknowledging it. But for many atheists and materialists, as is often the case, they do not acknowledge it, and they even believe that it doesn't exist. Nowadays, as for the existence of past and future, what we're doing here is simply giving everyone a gentle reminder. Those atheists and materialists has merely strengthened their perspective, and apart from achieving this goal, there's no other necessity. For those who are half believing, half doubting, those who are skeptical during the process of presenting arguments about the existence of past and future lives, perhaps your doubts will be completely dispelled, or perhaps your doubts may actually happen to deepen, and this is also possible. The third type is those who absolutely do not believe it exists. For those convinced it doesn't exist, they need to justify that what the specific reason for believing that it absolutely does not exist. Perhaps most people have never thought about this before, as whether it's because of the environment we grew up in or the education we've received, most of the people we come into contact with believe that a person only has one lifetime. They may believe that people come into this world from the very beginning, almost like mushrooms suddenly sprouting up in a field, appearing out of nowhere. And when a person dies, you see, it's as if the view is that when a person dies, it's like a lamp going out. This is the perspective that has been passed down to us from those around us. People who think this way are probably the majority, especially with the successive emergence of 17th century mechanical materialism in England and 19th century vulgar materialism. Both are impactful and spreaded widely. So regarding these two viewpoints, I believe I can share my views, frankly, that they have damaged the good root of the majority of people, because their theories have caused truly tremendous and significant harm to this world. If humanity was struck by atomic or hydrogen bombs, the actual harm wouldn't be that great. They would only affect certain cities, a few million or perhaps a few 100,000 people at the very most. But if there are other kinds of ideas, concepts, or beliefs that for some reasons do not actually conform to the truth, once they spread throughout the entire world, then everyone across the world will begin to pursue these ideas quite fanatically and enthusiastically. In the end, humanity will stop at nothing to do evil look at it. If there really were no future lives, even we Buddhists, we wouldn't be relentlessly insisting on establishing a viewpoint that aligning with the reality. No need to do it. If a theory doesn't conform to the truth, it can't stand with the examination. However, through many years of learning, listening, and contemplation, as well as debate and reflection on Buddhism, in the end, we have determined that past and future lives definitely exist. If anyone claims that they do not exist, they definitely cannot provide any solid, trustworthy, or reliable evidence whatsoever at all in any possible manner. Up to now, in fact, in this world, there are many people have not acknowledged this critical threat, and many doubt it. However, as for those who can truly refute the existence of past and future lives, and raise reasons for denying the continuity of life, so far I have not found any. Besides, in this regard, this isn't something I just reconsidered here today. I haven't been pondering it, nor is this a matter I have only begun to reflect upon. For nearly 20 years, I have been deeply concerned with this matter, considering whether it is for me or for humanity as a whole, and even for all living beings. The principle is extremely crucial. I can say, after a long period of consistent and dedicated effort in learning, contemplating and practicing Buddhism, that I have finally arrived, after much thought and careful consideration, at a very solid, definitive, and truly unambiguous conclusion. At this point, I think if I refer to cases from Buddhist scriptures and stories from Buddhist texts, but these stories, some people in particular, intellectuals and academics, may hold the opinions that these are just legends or sayings from certain individuals or folk traditions. I don't agree with that, as they think these are just subjective expressions from certain people, not necessarily true. Many people might think this way, so I simply won't cite those examples at this moment. However, in modern society, we can say many people truly have great trust in scientific research, and in all the cases presented by scientists gained through their extensive and meticulous research. Of course, I can also accept that it's entirely your right not to accept them, but I really hope that each of us should take a moment to reflect on this, even if just for a moment. This kind of reflection is truly a responsibility for everyone indeed. If you won't even think about it, regardless of whether past lives exist or not. Anyway, I don't really believe it. If you say that, then not believing in something that actually exists, that is a kind of superstition, either you should already have an irrefutable truth, but if you don't have such a truth and still refuse to believe, then I don't think that's the objective attitude of a true scientific worker who should always maintain fairness and impartiality in their research and observations. Personally saying I believe that our current research on past and future lives, while comprehensive, is particularly deficient, notably lacking in both range and depth. To date, although many people in academia frequently organize various exchange events and actively share ideas and hold numerous scholarly conferences, there are so many of them, but it becomes critical that day after day we pay lip service to discussions growing ever more glib in speech and skilled in debate. We often find ourselves engaging in thoughtful debates and discussions, whether the topic is related to Buddhism specifically or other religions. The most critical question is, deep down in our hearts, have we ever truly explored the question of whether there is an afterlife for humanity as a whole? If we haven't explored it, then for us, is this necessary or not? For example, if I only acknowledge what happens today, even though tomorrow clearly exists, but I refuse to acknowledge it here, and if none of us acknowledge it, isn't this kind of phenomenon quite frightening and quite tragic? Sometimes, when we take a very close look at human culture for a moment, even though on the surface, or in some appearances, not profoundly saying that we've reached the 21st century, many technologies have become incredibly advanced and remarkably sophisticated, but on certain levels, the cultures we originally had have been trampled where they shouldn't have been, and many truths that should be acknowledged have been refused recognition. So, is humanity truly progressing forward or regressing backward? Perhaps this is something that many people should reflect on in their own lives, even if just for a moment. Today, I would like to provide you with one or two specific cases as examples so that you can better understand the topic we are discussing. The first one, I think, well, maybe not everyone actually knows about it, but many people are concerned about the question of whether there is life after death. Dr. Stevenson, a scholar coming from the University of Virginia, located in the southern eastern of the US, he was known as a biologist and an expert in medicine as well. Perhaps you have seen some of his cases, either featured in the news or discussed in public, as they have sometimes attracted attention. In the cases that he brought up, every person from the stories had the capacity to recall their past lives and describe what they had actually experienced. Even if you don't accept them, I honestly think that's completely fine. His careful attitude towards sociological research is something that the intellectuals here should reflect on. Why is that the case? The reason is that for a period spanning more than 40 years, over 4 decades, he went to India, Sri Lanka, and other Eastern countries to collect information to support the idea that past and future lives could be proved. Then, starting from European and American countries, he has introduced past and future lives. In his first book, 20 Cases Suggestive of Reincarnation, there were a total of 20 cases on this topic. It was published in 1966. After it was published, it caused a sensation throughout the United States. Perhaps you know his name and some of his work, which are truly renowned. He wrote many books throughout his life. I once wanted to specifically understand his mindset. Why is that? Because, as we may know, if only the Buddhist perspective is presented, many people here may not accept it and retain doubts. We won't insist if you don't accept it, but the line of his research, he started field research in India at the beginning. He conducted investigation, interviewed many people, and then collected various real cases. Starting from the first case, he felt a bit curious about the rebirth, then driven by curiosity and supported by a foundation, and having great interest in this field himself, he went to India with a sense of curiosity to get acquainted with the locals, to learn about stories and narratives about rebirth. Ultimately, he found numerous cases to demonstrate its existence. Then he began to devote himself fully to it. It was probably in his 30s, close to 40, and from that time on, all the way up until the end of his life, he has already passed away. He passed away in 2007. In 2002, he officially stepped down and retired from the Life and Reincarnation Research Center around 2003. He wrote the last book. And this book is also quite famous, but unfortunately there is no Chinese translation available yet. Since this year, in Lurung Buddhism Academy, there has been a group of people who pursue doctoral programs in the United States. Some of them have become monastics while others have not. And there are also some people from other countries. Together, we have made a shared aspiration. Since the phenomenon of life is important, the Wisdom and Compassion Translation Center was established to compile and translate very precious books from the UK and the US, especially those on past and future lives. We are building up a translation team, and in the future, if all the necessary conditions come together, we hope that within a decade or so we can translate some truly valuable and meaningful portion of the treatises. Dr. Stevenson set a very good example in conducting research in this field. He collected more than 2,500 cases throughout the entirety of his career, more than 2,500 cases, all involving real people and true events. He went to find first-hand materials and the parties involved. It's not like just reporting something that happened somewhere in a straightforward way. A lot of news nowadays is fake. It's not true. He maintained a completely impartial attitude as a scientific researcher and went to find the cases one by one. Before he passed away, as you might remember, some time ago, his successor, a scholar by the name of Dr. Tucker, also working at the University of Virginia, focusing on phenomena related to life as well. At the very beginning, he didn't have a surrounding understand on it. I have been in touch with him recently. Through our contact, I found his work attitude is as rigorous as Dr. Stevenson's. His approach to work and overall framework are rather similar to Dr. Stevenson's, but his research emphasis is on American children, this specific group. He initially believed that in the Eastern countries, like India, Sri Lanka, and Myanmar, there were particularly many cases of children who could recall their past lives. Later on, there are also quite a few cases in the UK. Why weren't there any in America? Finally, he discovered an exceptionally large number of cases. Later, Dr. Tucker shifted the focus of his field research to the United States, thereby making it his primary and principal area of study. After that, he eventually discovered and came across a great many different cases over time, in fact. He began searching cases carefully, naturally, given certain American traditions. If a child could fully recall past lives, people around them would sometimes feel, just like in Han Chinese regions, that either the child often fantasized or even think that the child had some mental problems. In the beginning, this made it difficult for people around them to understand. Last year, in 2010, when Dr. Tucker was interviewed by reporters, he shared a particularly memorable one among all the cases that he had collected. What left him the deepest impression was a little child. He was asked, among all these cases, which one impressed you the most? An American child began recounting his past life starting at age 4, and it sounded somewhat like fantasy. His parents took him to various mental health centers for treatment, but nothing worked. Later, the child kept saying, "I used to act in Hollywood movies back then." He talked about various stories about Hollywood movies every day, and he also talked about his house was spacious and described his residence. Later, to deliberately trigger more specific memories from him, his mother found some old Hollywood movies. "That person is me," he said, pointing. When he turned to one particular page of a movie, Dr. Tucker made extensive contacts and collected information about his past life regarding his most unforgettable case. Dr. Tucker said that, "Originally, I didn't believe at all that people have past lives, just working with Dr. Stevenson out of curiosity. But later, I began to have some doubts, and now I firmly believe it." He believed people definitely have past and future lives. However, these materials are not available in Chinese, while they are generally documented in English. Dr. Tucker hopes that quantum mechanics can provide an explanation for the phenomenon of reincarnation. When he referred to quantum mechanics, he says that our mind can continue to exist, and even without any interruption. Consciousness exists beyond matter, indeed, and disrupts the wave equations of matter. So this continuity of consciousness can extend indefinitely. Thus, there is absolutely no reason to say that the consciousness is a secondary appendage of the body in any way. He said this argument doesn't hold up, and then he gave an analogy using a television as an example. Even though it can accurately decode signals and display images, but everything you can see inside the television is not genuine and true internal cause. So on this issue, everyone should give it some thought. We speak of the souls of sentient beings, or the mind, as the primary factor to determine we are human beings in this lifetime, and in the next lifetime, we will become another sentient being. So mind is generally regarded as the main factor. But mechanistic materialism and atheism maintain that consciousness depends on the body. If this were the case, consciousness would have to arise from matter, which is a notion fundamentally untenable in both dialectics and logic. If you don't believe this, I hope you'll take some time to study Dharmakirti's The Pramanavartika, Commentary on Valid Cognition. He explained in it that consciousness has the function of continuing onward. Unless special conditions are encountered, such as attaining the fruit of arhatship, consciousness will definitely continue indefinitely. This is completely consistent with the analogy that Dr. Tucker just mentioned. Because the body does have an external causal influence on consciousness, but it will definitely not become an internal cause. The issue has rigorous logics. We should reflect on it, as some scientists also believe that as consciousness transcends materiality, its continuum propels rebirth. So we became human this lifetime and another sentient being next lifetime. It is entirely possible. Some people think it's impossible, as the consciousness is only a byproduct of the brain. However, this view has already been refuted by scientists. If it were truly reasonable, then why can headless sentient beings still be alive? That's not possible. In 1940s, there was a headless chicken in the United States, and it had survived for 18 months. The owner found it quite rare and fed it daily by milk and water. Actually, this principle is very simple. In this world, there are numerous stories of this kind. While regarding such phenomena, I think current scientific workers have a common problem. They are stubborn in their opinions. Even when their viewpoints are full of loopholes, they are unwilling to admit it. This is certainly unreasonable. In fact, nowadays in Han Chinese regions, there is a relative lack of people or organizations collecting materials in this area. As we've already known that your Northwest University is the home to a very renowned Buddhist research institute, and many sites have been all well established. As Professor Lee just mentioned, it has indeed been many years. If it could conduct in-depth research in this area in the future, it will certainly be very meaningful for humanity. Moreover, among the people present today, if we were to conduct interviews, some individuals might be able to recall, while others who cannot recall still feel that I really might have had past lives. A while ago, Larong Buddhist University held a university summer camp. I saw students among those I met. Some were from Northwestern University. Some people, I just recognized 2 or 3 from your side participated. I was somewhat curious at that time. Why? Among the more than 200 university students, several not only firmly believed in the existence of past lives, but also had many extraordinary experiences. Why do I have a past life? Because when I was a child, which were heard by many students, later I said I originally thought of mystical matters were primarily associated with the elderly. College students are generally very rational and wouldn't describe such scenarios. Among you, if there are those who don't believe in Buddhism, you college students, you might think this is superstition. Actually, it's not superstition. Indeed, some people, due to certain educational reasons, seem to think these things are impossible to exist. It ultimately shapes our worldview if we insist something does not exist. If there is a certain viewpoint and it has always been present during one's growth process, so it has a certain influence on people, therefore, I think my first suggestion is that I hope that the principles put forth by Dr. Stevenson and the cases mentioned just now, I'm not asking everyone to necessarily believe them, but I hope you will still think about some of the research from abroad we should consider carefully. If you don't reflect on them, I'm afraid that's an irresponsible attitude. Irresponsible to whom? Irresponsible to yourself. Because if the afterlife truly exists, we prepare nothing for the afterlife and do bad deeds. Perhaps you realize future lives exist just when death comes, but regret will be too late. You have failed to properly accumulate merit and practice good deeds. Actually, whether it's a country, a nation, or even the masses, everyone has a certain relationship with the prosperity of the entire country. Sometimes I think Xi'an, historically speaking, today's Xi'an was once a place where Buddhism was extremely prosperous. But now in today's human society, we can say in such a large city, most people don't believe in Buddhism. Even if they believe on the surface, they don't acknowledge past and future lives, which is quite sad. So our environment has a certain influence. During the Tang dynasty, from the emperor, all believed in Buddhism. Therefore, believing in Buddhism wasn't superstition, and besides, they completely followed the teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha. This way, at that time, people had such strong faith. Sometimes when we look back at history and examine the Tang dynasty, there weren't actually that many people back then. But as far as I know, Xi'an was the first city in human history to reach a population of 1 million. I think this should be true because it was recorded reliably. When Buddhism master Xuanzang passed away, the funeral procession exceeded 1 million people. With 1 million people, it can be imagined that Buddhism must have been greatly prosperous then. In 664 CE, it was 1,300 years ago, while in current society, except for some research centers, temples, and Buddhists, everyone else does not admit past and future lives. Perhaps no one at that time could have predicted that one day humanity would, are we really making rapid progress moving forward or rapidly regressing and declining? Why? Because if previous and future lives truly exist, but so many of us don't know this thing, isn't that a kind of sorrow? Everyone should also think about it. Even if some people may believe a little, while for future lives, we haven't prepared like practitioners do. Future lives are very long. According to Buddhist teachings, a leisured and endowed human life is extremely rare to obtain. If one spends their entire lifetime being busy and rushed, exhausted by meaningless matters, never making the slightest preparation for the long future lives to come, then does this really have any meaning? Everyone should reflect on this. I think the existence of past and future lives can be completely comprehended through the method of recollection. Perhaps some individuals say, what you say seems reasonable and I can't refute it, but I just believe that the afterlife doesn't exist. This happened before. In the history of Buddhism in India by Taranatha, there was once a person who held this viewpoint. This work has been translated into Chinese and contains a story about Master Chandragamin. Master Chandragamin was very famous in India at that time, and with the Madhyamaka master Chandrakirti, he had a wonderful debate. People all believed he was an emanation of Manjushri Bodhisattva, but he also encountered such a situation in past life. He once debated with a non-Buddhist, and every argument he presented was flawless, leaving the non-Buddhist thoroughly defeated. The non-Buddhist couldn't come up with any reasons, but he refused to acknowledge it. You eloquent people can make arguments even regardless whether there is convincing basis for them. I'm simply not skilled in debate, but losing the debate doesn't necessarily prove the existence of past and future lives. According to the Buddhist view, inconceivable conditions of dependent origination, when various circumstances come together, they can prove its existence. Master Chandragamin asked the king to bear witness. The non-Buddhist said, unless you can produce something from this life that appears in the next life. Otherwise, no way I can believe it. Later, Master Chandragamin held a pearl in his mouth, and later, Master Chandragamin held pearl in his mouth and made a vow to be reborn in a certain way to prove future lives exist. His body was preserved in a sealed copper coffin and was guarded day and night. Later, a small child appeared, and just then, the pearl from Master Chandra Gomin's mouth also appeared. Perhaps materialists or ordinary worldly people feel. How is this real? It's particularly inconceivable, hard to say. How could his life carry this pearl and go into that mother's womb? But in reality, the ins and outs of this phenomenon have been explained very clearly and in detail in the Buddhist commentary on the 400 verses Katushataka. A few years ago, a woman in Thailand who was reborn carrying an amulet. She carried an amulet when she was died. Later, when the fetus was born, the right palm tightly gripped her amulet. The event became sensational national news at the time. From the Buddhist view, this is an inconceivable dependent origination. Conditions come together, anything can happen, and proving past and future lives becomes particularly easy. However, for a few people, they may feel difficult to understand without deeper consideration. Furthermore, hypnosis is another method, but many people in Chinese Han region show little interest in it. Actually, this is very like many Bardo teachings in Tibetan Buddhism, including the Bardo teachings and practices in the Tibetan Book of the Dead. It offered a chance for more people to learn about Bardo. Why are these so popular among so many people in the West? Actually, this question concerns many people. Dr. Brian L. Weiss is a renowned medical doctor from Yale University. Once wrote a book called Many Lives, Many Masters. I think many people probably have read the book. Many Lives, Many Masters was extremely popular abroad. It became a bestseller in the United States and Taiwan region. It sold very well. After publication, all 2 million copies were sold out in less than a few months. At that time, the author found it strange. What was it about? He hypnotized a girl named Catherine to help her recall her past life experiences. Later, the process of treating her completely changed his life. Catherine suffered from phobias and depression. Dr. Weiss had given her 18 months of conventional treatment. Dr. Weiss believed her illness may stem from repressed childhood memories, when her emotions were gradually guided back to some of her childhood experiences, and then further back to a previous life. As the conditions came together for her, her consciousness returned to 1863 BC, and she described all the living conditions of that time. She can trace back all the living conditions, including her own appearance and how many children she had in her family. She recounted everything. And after that, in later therapy sessions, Catherine recollected over 10 lifelike past lives, and she told all of these memories to Dr. Weiss. Actually, he took many risks. Why? Because he wrote the first book about reincarnation. He risked affecting his academic standing and being criticized and ridiculed by his colleagues. However, he set all aside. 4 years after the event, he wrote the book ultimately. I have read the Chinese version of this book before, and now many celebrities particularly enjoy reading it, including some people from religious circles, intellectual circles, literary and artistic circles who are very interested in it. Through this book, the existence of past and future lives has already been undeniably substantiated. Many people have come to fully believe because of it. When Dr. Zhong Maosen was teaching at the University of Texas in the United States, he also spoke with Dr. Weiss over the phone. Dr. Weiss said that he had conducted over 20 such cases so far, all used hypnosis methods to help them. But the society as a whole, I don't know the situation at Northwest University. At some universities, the mindset is toward these things, either seeing them as myths or as legends, or calling them folk tales. If everything is treated with this attitude, They're not to mention real cases of past and future lives, even many kinds of things happening in today's society could be denied. But in reality, that shouldn't be the case. I believe that this university, as I know, in the past, Kang Yue, Liang Qichao, and Mr. Lu Shun have all given lectures here, is truly famous. While being famous doesn't mean the academic and cultural atmosphere inside is vibrant, as in some places, for various reasons, people's thinking has become a byproduct. It exists. But I believe this very mature Buddhist research center and religious research center will definitely study the most important things. I hope in the future we can truly understand it. Whether you admit, deny, or doubt the existence of past and future lives, there should be three options. You can fill a form. If you are half believing, half doubting, then you need to keep studying. If you absolutely do not acknowledge it, then you must have a reason for your decision. If you have no reason and say don't accept it, then that is very unreasonable. There are especially many things we cannot see or hear. Even if you have any worldly degree, including obtaining a doctorate, making mistakes is still the same. Now, some people have exceptionally worldly wisdom, but if there is no right faith to guide them, it is also wrong view. Buddha stated in scriptures, true comprehension must be supported by faith. Otherwise, the understanding one attains is incomplete and leads to a mistaken perspective, while faith without understanding is ignorance. That explains it. This means that our wisdom are not sustained by faith. It becomes a form of wrong view or a way to increase wrong views. If our faith is not guided by wisdom, it easily becomes superstition. If our views lack faith, in fact, they turn into incorrect or misguided views. Indeed, what we call wrong views are quite prevalent in the world today. Some people have no reason, but they just won't admit it. Some people attach to superficial resemblance. Many people use science as the yardstick. What does science actually say, whether past and future lives exist or not? In fact, science is merely a study of material things and is essentially blank when it comes to the realm of the mind and spirit. Even though some research institutes touch upon this area, it only scratches the surface. Many scientists themselves are confused and muddled, and the reasons they present are not necessarily sound. I have read an interesting joke, an entertaining story. It is said that after the end of World War I, at that specific time, some countries, in order to promote atheism among the population, used of scientific methods to support their advocacy and promotion events. So the government built a platform in the square to promote thoughts like no God, no past and future lives. Moreover, they would invite some scholars to give talks and presentations. Thousands upon thousands of people would gather below to listen. On one such occasion, the first to take the stage was an astronomy doctor. He explained many astronomical principles and raised reasons that seemed convincing, and finally shouted loudly, "So there definitely is no God. As I have observed the universe with telescopes for more than 20 years, and I have never seen God, I'm quite sure." After he finally finished speaking, many people in the audience applauded loudly and enthusiastically. The second to take the stage was a medical doctor who concluded the reasons and said, "After death, the human soul does not exist. I have worked in medicine and performing dissections for many years. I have dissected and examined them all. Is it in blood? And in dozens of years, I have never seen it. There is simply no such thing as a soul." He was also warmly received. The third to take the stage was an ethical doctor. I have read extensively through all kinds of books, ancient and modern, Chinese and foreign, but I simply cannot find any evidence for the existence of an afterlife for humans. When a person dies, it's like a lamp going out once you're dead. That's it. There's nothing more. Everyone welcomed him as well, and the applause was thunderous. At this point, the host was about to wrap things up. All of today's speeches have been a complete success. He spoke, are the viewpoints of these three PhDs reasonable? Does anyone have any objections? Many audience found the three's views correct. At this moment, an illiterate elderly woman walked to the front. First, she asked the first astronomy PhD, you said there is no God, as it couldn't be observed through your telescope. Have you ever seen wind through a telescope? If so, what shape is it? He said, no, it can't. She replied, can you say it doesn't exist? He was left speechless. Then she turned to the second medical PhD and asked, do you love your wife? Yes, I do. When you perform dissections, have you seen this love? He said, well, no, I haven't found it either. After a brief moment, she very thoughtfully addressed the third ethics PhD and turning to him said, when you were in your mother's womb, before you were born, did you acknowledge this world? Does it exist? Have you ever been to this world? If someone asked you, how is this world that you're living in now? How would you answer? At that moment, she also couldn't answer. Because in all the books throughout history, it's impossible to have interviewed you while you were in the womb, nor are there descriptions of the future. Maybe this is a made-up story, but I later thought about it very seriously at the time. Many people's mindset is like this. That day there was a young Buddhist. His father simply had no faith or no interest, no religious beliefs at all anyway. The son said, I want to go to the temple to worship and pray for disaster relief and longevity. The father tried to stop him. You shouldn't go. Why can't I go? You have to believe in science. You can't go. His father didn't actually know what science meant. Nowadays, science temporarily hasn't explained and interpreted all kinds of phenomena. Samadhiraja Sutra teaches 5 senses are not valid. If they were valid measures, then what use would the sacred path have? It would be useless. However, currently, most of people is quite ridiculous and ignorant. As I mentioned earlier in our discussion regarding Dr. Weiss's book, Many Lives, Many Masters, some people objected, saying, can hypnosis take you back to 1863 BCE? Could there be such a long span of time? Based solely on their limited knowledge and vision, they began doubting everything and denying everything and believe that this is justified. But whether in the rigorous logic of Tibetan Buddhism or in some Western logic systems, this is simply not, by any reasonable standard, a valid way to verify an issue. Before you are able to investigate and verify a problem, could you establish your own viewpoint? Many of you here should really think about this. Especially nowadays, many people believe that consciousness arises from the body. When the body dies, consciousness also disappears. This is a particularly terrifying fallacy. If consciousness arises from the body, then why doesn't it arise after a person dies? If you say that it lacks certain external conditions, what are the conditions? As the corpse is a complete body, so why can't it also produce consciousness? If the consciousness arises from the body, after all, is just the 4 elements, earth, water, fire, and wind. So why don't these 4 elements produce a person at any time? There is a very profound logic within this. According to the logic of threefold inference, our life has a next existence only if the conditions are met, the seeds are not destroyed. It looks very simple. Actually, it's necessary for you to better understand it by participating in some certain activities. In a short period of time, you may not immediately change your original attitude. If you doubt past and future lives, after hearing one lecture or studying one treatise, accept the existence of past and future lives, it's not that simple. It's true that the education we receive from a young age, childhood, has an extremely far-reaching impact. I knew an intellectual who initially completely didn't believe in past and future lives, and even openly expressed their doubts, debating with us many times and questioning our ideas repeatedly. Later on, he still had many questions regarding its existence. Because he was a rather fair-minded person, not someone who was unreasonable when he truly couldn't come up with a reason, he would still listen carefully and then thoughtfully reflect on it afterward. He remained doubtful during that time, searching for information, and asked people around. In the end, he came to fully believe in. He said, "I cannot find reliable evidence that past and future lives do not exist. While there is abundant evidence, including cases of recalling past lives, Buddhist scriptural teachings, logical reasoning, historical accounts, as well as many arguments from contemporary scientists, plus many different cases to demonstrate the existence. If I still refuse to acknowledge it despite all this evidence, wouldn't that be particularly foolish?" As someone who truly works in philosophy, that would be extremely inexcusable. It can be seen that one's correct understanding on a comprehensive matter could be said to have been gained through a certain period of refinement and testing. I think that many people here today may also have similar doubts and share the same kind of skeptical views about what is being discussed. I hope you will spend some time to repeatedly researching and studying this topic rather than blindly following others' viewpoints. This will help solidify your own understanding in the future. Otherwise, not long ago, I saw on the TV program Lecture Room, an expert said, according to superstitious people, they believe the existence of past and future lives, or karmic retribution, exists. At the time, he was on the television screen, so I had no way to debate with him, but I felt deep down as if I could hardly hold myself back. I thought this person has even been called an expert. What kind of so-called expert is that really? Why he would so readily reach such a conclusion, leaving no consideration, simply immediately labels it as superstition. A truly impartial person wouldn't necessarily jump to such a conclusion. While when many people listen to such statements from him, they blindly believe in authority. In fact, there are many people like this nowadays. So I think for many of the students here today, in the future, you may work in different positions and industries. In this busy era, we as Buddhist practitioners, at the very least, you should think, does what this monk is saying have any solid basis or strong evidence? If there's no basis, you can refute it. That is completely reasonable. But if there is a basis, or if it's worth considering, you might also want to open up some real books on logic from both ancient and modern times, from China and foreign. If you can do this, you won't make many mistakes. Otherwise, as Shakespeare said, you may pay with your life's price to compensate for the mistakes you have made if you speak carelessly about principles you don't understand. Otherwise, there will come a day in the future you may ultimately have to end up paying for it with your life. No matter what position a person holds, there is nothing that couldn't be openly expressed. For example, the Cultural Revolution has led to huge mistakes. Whether they are a leader or a monk, if what they say does not conform to truth, no matter who makes mistakes, the phenomenon of making mistakes is quite common. A university professor or researcher, and national leaders in the world, or us monastics, if anyone goes against the actual truth, then that is certainly a mistake. Furthermore, there is truly nothing to justify about that. Therefore, it would be best if us humanity could awaken sooner rather than remain deeply trapped in delusion over and over again. I hope that many of the intellectuals present here will have more exchanges and interaction with the Buddhist community in the future. Because in our Buddhist institutes and in many monasteries in Tibet, if we really have some language skills, or if there are some translations available, after communicating with many eminent monks and great masters, as well as with other intellectuals, you should come to understand certain principles. Some time ago, I saw that Zhu Qingxi, a highly respected and influential figure, who served as the former president of the University of Science and Technology, after he returned from an immersive 8-day trip to Tibet, he participated in a TV program and had a conversation with one of his friends, a calligrapher. He talked about the whole experience and spoke quite fair. He only met a few masters of Tibetan Buddhism, and these masters, probably due to time constraints, did not share profound teachings with him. However, from some respects, after his visit to Tibet, he truly felt that it brought a great change to his life. You can check it out too. It's all available online. I think as a former president of the University of Science and Technology, China, an academician, he should be very impartial. Therefore, I also hope that everyone present here should have a comprehensive understanding on their own lives, and at the same time, should also carefully observe the confusion of the people around them. Many people are very pitiful and chase money from dawn to dusk every day. What meaning and value do those short decades really have? Sometimes everyone really should take a look at their own lives. Many of you university students may be full of confidence about the future, always wanting to pursue the most beautiful and truly happiest kind of life. But you'll discover after into society, life has more suffering than joy, more hardship than happiness. Happiness, is it even 10%? No, it doesn't. Don't set your expectations too high now, otherwise you'll be disappointed later. Actually, if you don't understand life, don't understand Buddhism, don't understand the truth, neither learned how to be a good and kind person in school on the surface. In this regard, you may appear to be a so-called famous college student, graduate student, or doctoral student, while after graduation, people won't necessarily have much value if they lack faith and character. The crucial character education has been badly missed. Without character education, how can you conduct yourself in the world later on? How can you help sentient beings and give back to society? If you lack such principles every day and spend your whole life running around just for my happiness and my family, then no matter how wealthy, high-ranking, or talented, in the end it probably won't have much meaning nor reflect your values. Maybe my words aren't very pleasant to hear, and I understand what I'm saying might not be the easiest to hear, and none of the teachers or students here have offended me, so you might be wondering, why am I being aggressive right from the start already? Actually, that's not the case. Personally, I'm quite cheerful by nature and open-minded. But there are some fundamental truths about our society that many people need to understand, and it might actually benefit everyone. Honestly, sometimes when I see that people nowadays have enough to eat and wear, I feel very happy for them. But when I see people in cities, I also feel very distressed. Why? They are pitiful, always bustling about. They don't even know future lives exist, yet they think they're wise and clever. What's great? There's nothing special. Maybe this is simply my own wrong view. Perhaps it's just my own personal misconception. So I truly hope that everyone present here, if you have a foundation in the belief of past and future lives, then rebirth in the Pure Land will not be out of reach. Especially in Chinese Buddhism in particular, there has always been confidence in the rebirth teachings, as well as a deep and unwavering faith in the Pure Land teachings. Of course, when it comes to the so-called teachings on rebirth, I often believe in a chant saying, chanting the Buddha's name is not simply about the mouth, and meditating is not just about the legs. Though chanting the Buddha's name has great merit, it is not crucial. What matters most is that the heart must have faith in Amitabha Buddha and make the vow to be reborn in the Pure Land of ultimate bliss. With such faith and aspiration for long, according to the view of the final chapter of the Contemplation Sutra, we have hope of being reborn in Pure Land of ultimate bliss. Indeed, the bliss and magnificence of the Pure Land cannot be described in words. All of it, absolutely everything, simply cannot be described in words. Truly, for many of us, while we are in the Saha world, no matter how joyful our Saha world may be, it actually cannot be separated from suffering. From our perspective, some people at first glance have impressive high-rise buildings, villas, and luxury cars. They should be happy, but if we do not have a sense of fulfillment and the happiness from contentment and few desires, then it is extremely difficult for external wealth to fill the pit of your desires. So sometimes it is especially necessary for people in particular in today's modern world to learn about many of the spiritual teachings of Buddhism. Why do we now need Tibetan Buddhism, whether in the Han regions of China or in countries and places abroad, is so incredibly popular and widely loved? Actually, there's no difference between Tibetan Buddhism and Han Buddhism in terms of Buddhist doctrine. The main thing is that it has relatively direct methods for mind training and altruistic behavior, such as cultivating bodhicitta and performing altruistic actions. It's similar to Christianity nowadays, more practical, with a direct contribution to society. Tibetan Buddhism has both good and bad practitioners. This is inevitable anywhere, but its excellent teachings and the pith instructions from the lineage masters are indeed effective and very practical for people today. Those who truly and genuinely promote the teachings also and sincerely put all sentient beings first. In fact, each and every one of us now as Buddhists should keep in mind that we should help all beings end suffering, find joy. If someone is not a Buddhist, one should also always do our best to avoid any actions that harm sentient beings, as well as practice virtuous deeds to enable them to attain true happiness as soon as possible. Otherwise, if we truly harbor some wrong views or thoughts in our minds, is it time yet or should we wait just a little longer? Okay, let's continue. I could see exactly how many students there were from your school when they came on that particular day. There were just a few who came at that time.
All of the students who have been to the Rome Buddhist Academy, if you would, please now stand up and kindly let Khenpo have a look. All right, please sit down. Thank you.
On the very first day of our seminar, we also discussed and talked about topics such as past and future lives. We kept it with us for about a week, making sure it stayed safe and in our care during that time. This year, we held it at the Academy. There were people from more than 100 schools from various places. There were 208 people in total. On the first day's session, we discussed about the existence of past and present lives and rebirth. Another one was Buddhism and science. Discussing Buddhism and modern science can benefit all sentient beings mutually. Another one was meditation practice. And one more was a thoughtful and nuanced view on life and values. One day, we went out to a grassland to have some fun. I personally took them there. We went quite far, all the way to the beautiful riverside, and then we began to play there. Our university students were very energetic and enthusiastic. Perhaps sometimes it's just human nature. As I said about Professor Zhu Qingxi, going to some places in Tibet, seeing their local way of life and their beliefs, discussing and exchanging ideas with them, maybe after that. Of course, our college has too many people now, so I'm not saying everyone should go there. But no matter where you are, it's still very necessary to understand a bit about it. Some time ago, when I was at Chinese University of Hong Kong, I was wondering, did the Chinese University of Hong Kong actually have this available at that particular time, did they? It seems that Northwestern University didn't have it this year either, though some still came. These students had very similar thoughts that many places like Tibet and Hong Kong, relatively open, with more inclusive thinking, and this kind of enlightened attitude is very worthy of praise. At our institute, regardless of which Buddhist tradition someone belongs to, whether it's the Pure-land or Tiantai schools from the Han region or any other Buddhist tradition, they can all study there. In Tibet, any tradition, Gelug, Nyingma, or even Bongkan have the opportunities to study there as well, which was quite inclusive. Back then, at that time, when His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche established the Buddhist Academy in 1980, there were such regulations. People were conservative and just looked after themselves in general, lacking a strong sense of inclusiveness or acceptance toward outsiders. But now, more than 30 years have passed, we feel that The wise had already foreseen certain inevitable future trends. So I think that all of you here in the audience should also adopt an open mindset to study life sciences in the future. This is a very important matter. It is very important for both individuals and society. In fact, if we truly want to save society now, everyone needs to understand cause and effect. And these concepts, I've seen many scholars in Han regions believe that good deeds bring good rewards, evil deeds bring evil retribution. If I do a good deed in this life, I will see results in this life. As for whether there will be results in the next life, they do not explore or observe this at all. From the Buddhist perspective, this is really a superficial and shallow understanding. Most people believe that good deeds are rewarded, bad deeds are punished in this life. So they choose to go to temples to worship Buddha and burn incense. Do they have faith? They do, but their faith is entirely superficial in nature. They pray to Buddha to bless their business success, grant them precious children, keep them safe and sound, ensure family harmony, the family is harmonious, and there are no arguments. There is a well-known saying that the family is a small battlefield, so they pray for no argument within the family, and as a result end up having the same desires every time they pray. This is a particularly narrow kind of aspiration that doesn't qualify as the lowest vehicle in Buddhism, let alone rebirth in the Pure Land of ultimate bliss. It doesn't really amount to a higher level of faith at all. Of course, faith is a personal freedom. It's fine if you have faith, or if you don't. But if you do have, it should be correct faith. Superficially and temporarily, if this faith is not in place, it's unreasonable. If you have the faith on the principles of Buddhism, you should study and research them systematically and take a certain amount of time and sometimes even patience to truly and fully understand their real meaning. I don't have much more to add, to be honest. That's really all I can say. In summary, I truly hope that everyone can support and uphold themselves and others with the right view. If each of us truly understands the existence of past and future lives, we will aspire to rebirth in Pure Land bliss, and your wishes will also come true. Thank you, everyone.
We care about our next generation, but do we care about our next life? Khenpo began the topic from Western research, Buddhist scriptures, reasoning, and some empirical evidence. He discussed the next life from 4 aspects. Now let's welcome Professor Li Lian, Director of the Buddhist Research Institute at Northwest University, Vimalakirti Academy, and doctoral supervisor, to give a summary of today's lecture.
Most respected Khenpo Sodargye, esteemed Dharma masters, highly honored teachers and guests, dear faithful friends. Today we are very happy and truly fortunate to be able to gather here at this time and in this place to meet our beloved Khenpo with joyful hearts, wholehearted devotion, and deep respect. We are all delighted to come together with great joy and listen to the Dharma Master's teachings. Having this karmic connection is the result of our merit accumulated in past lives. So we should cherish this moment. The host asked me to give a summary, but honestly, I don't dare to summarize. So that I would just like to share some personal reflections and thoughts that I had after listening to Khenpo's teaching. When I was in contact with Khenpo's disciples a while ago, when we discussed the arrangements for this public speech, I made a request and proposed today's topic. If we go by the interests of most academic scholars, they may not come up with this one. Neither they nor the lay practitioners and disciples, including Khenpo himself, might have thought that when coming to Northwest University, they would talk about more theoretical topics of more academic significance. my consideration is unique, as I have been interested in this topic for many years. When I hosted the Yanta Forum 2 years ago, I continuously invited people to discuss past and future lives and the existence of afterlife and so on. This topic is very important for Buddhist faith and for exploration the unknown, particularly the mysteries of our own existence. When I brought up this topic, then Khenpo's disciple was also very compassionate, and I was told that he conveyed my desire to him. Then I got the response, Khenpo was very willing to discuss this topic. I was truly delighted. This afternoon, after listening to Khenpo's teaching, I found it truly eye-opening because Khenpo's way of speaking is, in fact, quite noticeably different from those rational, argumentative lectures. The latter one is relatively common. His lecture spans ancient and modern times, traversing East and West, and merges Western scholars' views, as well as perspectives from Chinese. There are studies from academic community and also some experiential insights from Buddhist master regarding their practice. More significantly, it represents Khenpo's own profound reflection from a Buddhist view on the issues of future existence and rebirth in the Pure Land. Personally, I found it very fluent, very insightful, and highly inspiring. So here, on behalf of the Buddhist Research Institute of Northwest University, I thank for Khenpo's compassionate discourse. I often ponder the question, where does life ultimately come from? Where does it go? Does the life that exists in this world within certain dimensions of time and space have a higher, more enduring, meaningful existence? These questions, whenever anyone has time to quietly reflect, will inevitably become questions that demand answers. Sometimes I think, although the Buddhist Research Institute at Northwest University was the earliest established in the entire country, yet when it comes to exploring the true meaning of life, is still far from sufficient. Though I feel interested personally, we have not done enough. The location of the school was Taiping Ward in the Tang Dynasty, where there was a temple called Shiji Temple, whose abbot was Shendao. He was a figure particularly admired by Empress Wu Zetian and Emperor Gaozong of Tang. Today, when we look at the Chinese grottos, the most magnificent is the Longmen Grand Buddha in Luoyang. The chief architect was Master Shandao, abbot at Shiji Temple, located right here where our university now stands. Pure-land thought took root in China and was embraced there. It was started from him. Therefore, this place, Northwest University, in exploring the meaning of life, life's destination, life's value, and in achieving ultimate transcendence, has a special historical legacy. This afternoon, at such a time, in a place, Khenpo has compassionately taken time to give teachings explaining future lives and rebirth in the Pure Land. This resonates with Master Shandao's teachings and Dharma propagation across time in the past. So I feel this karmic connection is truly auspicious and appreciate Khenpo's awesome teachings once again. Thank you so much.